Episode 4. The Randlords' Reckoning. Lachlan. The strike that began as a spark in Johannesburg's mines has now engulfed the entire city in a raging inferno of change. The colonial administration, once confident in its iron grip on power, now finds itself teetering on the brink of collapse as the workers' movement gains unprecedented momentum. Sister Agnes and Elias, emboldened by their earlier successes, lead a daring march on the city center. Thousands of miners and their families flood the streets, their voices rising in a thunderous chorus of demands for justice and equality. The sight of this sea of humanity, united in purpose, sends shockwaves through the corridors of power. Cornelius and his fellow Randlords, their backs against the wall, resort to increasingly desperate measures. They hire mercenaries from neighboring territories, promising them riches and power in exchange for crushing the rebellion. The streets of Johannesburg become a battleground, with violent clashes erupting between strikers and these hired guns. Isabelle Dubois, now fully committed to the cause, uses her social connections to orchestrate a daring plan. She convinces a group of sympathetic journalists to smuggle cameras into the conflict zones, capturing the brutality of the Randlords' tactics for the world to see. As images of bloodied workers and weeping children flood international newspapers, global outrage reaches a fever pitch. Thomas and Cozy, the charismatic young lawyers, who emerged as powerful voices for the African workers, find themselves thrust into the international spotlight. They travel to London, addressing the British Parliament and making impassioned pleas for intervention. Their eloquence and determination begin to sway even the most conservative members of the government. Back in Johannesburg, the economic stranglehold of the strike begins to take its toll. Businesses across all sectors grind to a halt, and even the wealthiest citizens feel the pinch of scarcity. The social circle that once revolved around lavish parties and frivolous gossip now buzzes with whispers of fear and uncertainty. As tensions reach a boiling point, a pivotal moment arrives. A group of moderate Randlords, led by a visionary named James Fitzroy, breaks ranks with Cornelius and his hardliners. Fitzroy, seeing the writing on the wall, proposes a radical solution, a gradual transition of power that would give workers a seat at the table while preserving some measure of influence for the mining interests. This proposal sends shockwaves through both sides of the conflict. The workers' movement, while initially skeptical, sees an opportunity for real, lasting change. The hardline Randlords, however, view it as nothing short of treason. In a tense meeting at City Hall, representatives from all factions gather to negotiate. Sister Agnes and Elias stand shoulder to shoulder with Thomas and Cozy, facing off against Cornelius and his dwindling circle of allies. James Fitzroy, positioned as a mediator, presents his plan for a new governing council that would include both workers and mine owners. The negotiations stretch on for days, with heated arguments and moments of near breakdown. Outside, the city holds its breath, teetering on the edge of either a new dawn or further bloodshed. Isabelle Dubois uses her connections to keep the international press informed, ensuring that the world's eyes remain fixed on Johannesburg. As the talks enter their final, crucial phase, a shocking turn of events threatens to derail everything. Cornelius, in a last-ditch effort to maintain control, attempts to have Thomas and Cozy assassinated. The plot is foiled at the last moment by an unlikely hero, Cornelius's own son, who has secretly sympathized with the workers' cause. This attempted betrayal proves to be the final straw. The remaining moderate Randlords abandon Cornelius entirely, throwing their support behind Fitzroy's plan. In a historic moment, a new charter for Johannesburg is signed, establishing a power-sharing agreement that promises to reshape the city's future. The streets erupt in celebration as news of the agreement spreads. Workers and their families pour out of their homes, embracing each other and weeping tears of joy. Even some of the wealthier citizens, relieved that bloodshed has been avoided, join in the festivities. In the days that follow, the true magnitude of the change becomes apparent. The mines begin to reopen under new management structures that give workers a voice in decision-making. Schools and hospitals that were once segregated now open their doors to all. The physical landscape of the city itself begins to transform. With new housing developments and public spaces designed to bridge the gap between rich and poor, Sister Agnes and Elias, their roles as leaders of the movement now evolving, focus on ensuring that the promises of the new charter are kept. They establish training programs to prepare workers for leadership positions and create support networks for families still struggling in the aftermath of the strike. Isabelle Dubois, having burned her bridges with her former social circle, finds a new purpose. She uses her wealth and connections to establish a foundation dedicated to education and healthcare for the city's poorest residents. Her actions inspire other wealthy citizens to follow suit, creating a new culture of philanthropy in Johannesburg. Thomas and Cozy, hailed as heroes of the movement, face the challenge of transitioning from revolutionaries to statesmen. They take seats on the new governing council, working tirelessly to draft laws that will cement the gains of the strike and push for even greater reforms. As the dust settles and the new reality takes shape, Johannesburg finds itself at the forefront of a wider African awakening. News of the successful strike and subsequent reforms spreads to other colonies, inspiring similar movements across the continent. The city becomes a beacon of hope, a living example of what can be achieved when people unite against injustice. The Randlords' legacy, once synonymous with exploitation and inequality, is forever altered. While challenges remain and the road ahead is uncertain, the winds of change that began as a whisper in the mines have become a roar that can no longer be ignored. Johannesburg, reborn through struggle and sacrifice, stands poised to write a new chapter in its history, one of justice, equality, and shared prosperity for all its citizens.